Maybe, yeah, maybe. I didn't really care though, because I thought it's my album, I can do whatever the fuck I want. There was a challenge in the sense of I didn't want to repeat the way I had worked before. And so I started to change my habits in the sense of I would focus on the live aspect of things, for instance, which is with Savages was all about the live performance. Even songs were written on stage, you know. And then for this record I decided I'm going to make a record, which is a different way of thinking. So it means there's less boundaries, so you're opening up. So there's a risk then, as you say, that it gets lost. The other risk was because I was working in different cities, in different times, with different people, different producers, which was also my intention. And obviously the challenge, but I like a challenge though, but the challenge was how do you bring that home? But that happened because at the end of the journey making the record, I worked with Flood, a producer in London, and he helped me to bring everything back home. He made it mine completely. Because when I collaborate with people, I usually leave a real space for people to express themselves. I don't bring people in to control them. I bring them in because I love what they do. I love what Atticus Ross was doing with 9 Inch Nails, with film soundtracks with Trent Reznor. And I pretty much gave him an open field for him to do whatever he wanted. After 6 months of conversation, of course, where we exchanged letters and phone calls and met in LA and worked together, and then, you know. But I like to see a self-expression, because that's what you want on a record, right? You want expression. Yeah, it's not really a solo album, it's a collaborative record. I know my own limitations, but I know what I can do really well. So I try to, and I love the dynamic of working with people. I always love working in groups. I think it's for music, it's the best, because you bounce back between each other, and the music is more rich like that. I did want an album cover that was quite unapologetic, which I think we succeeded in doing. I worked with Tom Hingston he's a designer who did the Massive Attack Mezzanine cover. He did the last 3 Nick Cave records. He did last videos for David Bowie. I loved his work, and we talked about 3D sculpture, which was very abstract for me at the beginning. It's the idea of creating a sculpture that doesn't exist. But I love the idea of creating a representation of me, because I think the album is a fiction as much as a novel, as much as a film. It reminded the fact that although I put all of me in the record, it's still a representation of me. All I want is to go dancing with the devil. Yeah, I definitely wanted a contrasted record. There was a few records that really interested me over the past few years. The first one was the Beyoncé record that she dropped in 2013 called Beyoncé. I'd never really listened to any Beyoncé's record intensively before, but that one really intrigued me musically. It involved like underground producers like Boots, for example, a song like Haunted, where suddenly you had a song within a song within a song, and all the structures were broken up. And it was really liberating to hear that, especially from someone who was doing pop. To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. Sense of narrative, multiplicity of voices. It reminded me that a record can be a complex piece of work. And that's what I love about records. And then there was an album called Double Negative that came out by a band called Low, which was so daring in the production. Like you have, Low is very good at writing ballads, acoustic ballads, and suddenly the songs were hidden behind a veil of distortion, and it was a great representation of what our time is, you know, sometimes hard to find beauty through the layers of bullshit. This record also reminded me that I wanted to make a record where the production work is as important as the songs, that it has the sound, how it sounds, how it's produced, and I also thought I'd never done a record like this before. I never had worked that way before. If I hear them say, she's not there. I always say that my first crowd is the other artists. You know, since when I started, it's them who came to me first. who said, I like what you do in John Jehn or in Savages. It was them who welcomed me as a family. So I feel very comfortable in their company because I feel that I am accepted, you know. And it was quite rare for me to feel that way. I didn't really feel accepted when I was a kid, and when I was a teenager I felt much more, very often, as an outcast. And suddenly moving to London when I was 20 years old and meeting other artists and creating friendships, it changed me, because it gave me confidence, and it made me more able to develop an identity, you know. And I don't know, I feel when I talk to artists, because I'm also a radio presenter and a TV presenter, and I welcome artists to sit where you're sitting now and to talk to them about what they do in their process. That's what I do naturally in life. I sit down with artists and I ask them a million of questions. I want to know how they do it, how they did this. You know, I want to know, because I can't just be a fan. I have to understand how they made things, because this is how I grow, for me, to know how to do my own art, let's say. There is a filmic aspect to the record, although it's still a record, but it's not a soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist. You know, that's a bit pretentious, but I definitely wanted to create music that makes you see things. I definitely didn't want to make a boring record, so I wanted a record that you never know what's coming next, and you had this sense of suspense. And that's why working with Atticus Ross was really important, because of all his work in film soundtracks. I think he brought that sense of suspense by producing the opener and the closing song of the record, and creating this sort of spiral effect of the record, where you finish it, you can start again, you finish the way you started it, with the same dark voice. I definitely felt that when I started Savages, I felt quite alone. I think now you're right, there is a revival of guitar music, which is really great, with Fountains DC, with Idols, and I wished it were there when I was fronting Savages. But at the same time, you know, creating Savages was creating a band that wasn't around for me. I was trying to make the music. I was so bored at gigs. I was like, why is no one moving? Like, why is everyone standing still? And so I was trying, my goal was to have mosh pits, and then I got them. And so it was kind of coming from post-punk to punk and hardcore. It was kind of a shift for Savages there. I think they're great bands now, and I definitely love Doggerel, the Fountains DC first record. Joe Talbot of Idols is performing on my record. I love him. I think he's, as a band, they're really reinventing what it means to be a man in a band as well. They're bringing a new fresh air into it, and Joe is someone who I really love, because he's aware of his own dark side. So that's why I wanted him to be on my record, to sing on the song called How Could You, which is about jealousy. You know, I called him and I was like, do you want to be a jealous man on my track? He was like, yeah, I know what that means. All I want is to go dancing with the devil. You know, it's Niki Tsanfal who used to say, I'm a woman and I make art, so naturally my art will be a reflection of what it means to be a woman in my time. But that's it. You know what I mean? Yes, I do think, especially when I'm in contact with fans and who people tell me what the music meant to them, what it's changed for them. For some people it can be quite deep, and I'm touched by that. But I can't really think about that when I'm creating the music. Although I do, actually that's not entirely true, because I do really think about what I'm going to say. I do take my time to think about what I'm going to say on the record. I take it seriously. Again, it's the idea the record's going to be there forever. Although I hate the idea of music being overthought. So that's why during making To Love Is To Live, I was doing recording sessions and then forgetting about it for a few months, and then coming back to it, and then forgetting about it again. Because that was the only way for me, I thought, to try to keep the music as effortless as possible. I didn't want to force the music. And I wanted the music to come to me, in a way. And for that I needed time. And time is a luxury. Like, I had the luxury to have time. If I hear them say, she's not there. You're not the first person to say that. And I never thought about it, but apparently a lot of people are picking up on that, which makes sense because they work again as a spiral, so you sort of finish where you start. Yeah, the record is about being human, but it's about defining human beings by the absence of humanity as well. One of the lyrics of Human is, I used to be a human being, now I live in the web. I was fascinated by those articles about people who go to digital rehab, where they've so overflown with digits and information and news that they actually lose sense about the meaning of life, and they're unable to do anything with their hands. It's like a new sickness, like it's a new disease. And it felt important to talk about it. It's a bit weird as a subject of a song, but, you know, I assume. Blame me.